The ocean was quiet that morning. Captain Daniel Reyes stood on the deck of his old fishing boat, the Marina's Pride. The sun was still low over the water. Birds called in the distance. Nothing seemed unusual. He had been fishing these waters near the coast of Chile for almost 20 years. He knew every current, every rock, every dip in the seabed. But today, something was different. His sonar screen showed a strange shape below the boat. It was not a whale. It was not a sunken ship. It was too big, too straight, too perfect to be natural. "Miguel," he called to his crewmate. "Come look at this." Miguel walked over, wiping his hands on his shirt. He looked at the screen and frowned. "That can't be right," Miguel said. "That thing is huge, bigger than any ship I've ever seen." Daniel adjusted the sonar, trying to get a clearer picture. The shape below them stretched far into the darkness, deeper than normal fishing waters. It looked like a long, smooth object, resting on the ocean floor like a sleeping giant. "Should we call someone?" Miguel asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. He stared at the screen, feeling a strange chill despite the warm morning sun. Something about the shape made him uneasy. It wasn't rusted or broken like a normal shipwreck. It looked untouched. Perfect. "Yeah," Daniel finally said. "Call the Coast Guard. Tell them we found something big." 6 hours later, the calm morning was gone. Navy ships surrounded the area. Divers were being prepared. Scientists from 3 different countries were already on their way. News helicopters circled overhead, though the military kept them far from the exact location. Dr. Elena Cruz stood on the deck of a research vessel, watching the divers get ready to go down. She was a marine geologist, but she had been called in because of her experience with deep-sea anomalies. She had seen strange rock formations before. She had studied underwater volcanoes and hidden caves, but nothing had prepared her for what the sonar images showed. The object below them was over 2 kilometers long. "That's not possible," she muttered to herself, looking at the printed scans again. "Nothing on Earth is built like this." A young naval officer, Lieutenant James Park, walked up beside her. He held a tablet showing the same scans. "Dr. Cruz," he said, "Command wants your opinion before the divers go down. Is this natural or man-made?" Elena studied the image one more time. The surface of the object was smooth, almost metallic. There were no natural curves or random shapes you would expect from rock or coral. Instead, there were straight lines, sharp angles, and what looked like sealed openings along the sides. "It's not natural," she said slowly. "And it's not man-made either. Not by us, anyway." James raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Elena looked up at him, her face serious. "I mean this wasn't built on Earth." The divers went down first, sending back video feeds to the surface. The cameras showed dark water, then slowly, the outline of the object appeared. It was massive. As the divers got closer, the true scale became clear. The object was not just long, it was tall, rising like an underwater mountain, its top nearly reaching the shallower waters. The surface was covered in strange markings, not rust, not sea growth, but symbols. Rows and rows of symbols, glowing faintly with a dim blue light, as if the object still had some form of power running through it. "Command, we have visual confirmation," one diver said through the radio, his voice shaking slightly. "This thing is definitely not natural. I'm seeing what looks like a hull, like a ship, but it's massive. It doesn't look like any material I've ever seen." On the surface, in the command center, silence filled the room. Admiral Frank Castillo stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, watching the video feed with a hard expression. "Get me satellite imaging of the full structure," he ordered. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before anyone goes near it again." Within hours, imaging teams had used sonar mapping and underwater drones to create a rough 3D model of the object. When the model was projected onto the main screen, the entire room went quiet. It was a ship, not a boat. Not a submarine. A ship shaped unlike anything human engineers had ever designed. Long, sharp, built with strange curves that seemed almost alive, like a predator frozen in stone. That's a warship, Lieutenant Park said quietly, staring at the screen. Look at the shape. Those aren't decorative lines, those are weapon housings, dozens of them. Admiral Castillo studied the image carefully. His jaw tightened. How long has this been down there? He asked. Dr. Cruz checked her notes. Sediment samples taken near the object suggested a shocking answer, based on sediment layers around the hull. At least 300 years, maybe longer. The room fell silent again. 300 years. Buried under the ocean. Undetected. Untouched by humanity. Until today. Over the next 2 weeks, the operation grew larger. What started as a small research mission became a massive, secretive military and scientific project. Governments were informed. International agreements were made to keep the discovery contained, at least until more was understood. The ship, now called Site Zero by the research team, was slowly raised using a combination of underwater cranes, giant flotation devices, and careful engineering. It took 19 days to bring it close enough to the surface for direct study, and even then, only a small portion could be exposed above water at a time due to its massive size. When the hull finally broke through the surface of the ocean for the first time in centuries, cameras from every angle captured the moment. Water poured off its dark, smooth surface. Steam seemed to rise where sunlight touched the strange metal, as if the material itself reacted to warmth after so long in the cold depths. Standing on a nearby platform, Dr. Elena Cruz watched in awe. Beside her, Lieutenant Park lowered his binoculars, his expression a mix of fear and amazement. "It's beautiful," Elena whispered. "It's terrifying," James replied. Both were right. The ship rose from the water like an ancient monster waking from a long sleep. Its hull, easily 3 times the length of the largest aircraft carrier ever built, dwarfed every human vessel nearby. Strange markings covered its surface, glowing faintly blue in some places, dark and lifeless in others. Long sections looked burned or damaged, as if the ship had suffered heavy battle wounds before it sank. "This wasn't just abandoned," Elena said, studying the damage. "Look at the hull. There's battle damage everywhere. Whatever happened to this ship, it wasn't peaceful." Admiral Castillo, standing nearby, nodded slowly. "Get me a full damage assessment," he ordered, "and I want a team ready to attempt entry within 48 hours. Entry into the alien ship was not simple. The outer hull resisted every attempt to cut through it. Lasers, plasma torches, even experimental drilling equipment failed to make more than a scratch on the surface. It was as if the material was designed to survive far greater damage than anything humanity could currently produce. "This isn't just metal," one of the engineers reported, frustrated after another failed attempt. "It's like nothing in our periodic table. It absorbs heat and just redistributes it. No burn marks, no melting." For 3 days, teams tried different methods. Finally, it was Dr. Cruz who suggested a different approach. "What if we're not supposed to force our way in?" she said during a late-night meeting in the command tent. "What if there's a proper way inside? Ships like this, logically, should have some kind of entry system. Maybe it's not about brute force. Maybe it's about finding the right access point." Her theory was tested the next day. Using deep radar imaging, engineers mapped the entire hull and located several sealed sections that looked different from the rest. Smoother, with faint outlines resembling doors or hatches. One such section was near the base of the ship, close to where the worst battle damage had occurred. Careful examination revealed a small, almost hidden panel beside the sealed hatch, covered in the same alien symbols seen elsewhere on the hull. "This might be some kind of control panel," Elena said, studying the markings closely. James frowned. "Are we sure this is safe? We don't know what triggering something on an alien warship might do." Admiral Castillo, standing behind them, made the final call. "We've come this far," he said. "We need answers. Proceed with caution, but proceed." Slowly, carefully, a small robotic probe was sent to interact with the panel. Cameras recorded every second as the probe's sensor gently touched the symbols. At first, nothing happened. Then, faintly, one of the symbols began to glow. Dim blue light spreading outward like ripples in water. A low humming sound echoed from somewhere deep inside the ship, vibrating through the hull itself. Everyone in the command tent froze, watching the monitors. "It's reacting," someone whispered. The hatch sealed for centuries let out a soft hiss. Slowly, painfully slowly, it began to open. The first team to enter the ship wore full protective suits, carrying scanning equipment and weapons, though everyone silently hoped the weapons wouldn't be needed. Dr. Elena Cruz insisted on joining, despite Admiral Castillo's hesitation. "I need to see this myself," she had argued. "If we're going to understand this ship, I need direct observation, not just second-hand reports." Reluctantly, Castillo agreed, assigning Lieutenant Park and a small security team to accompany her. Inside, the corridors were dark, lit only by the dim glow of scattered emergency lights along the walls, lights that had somehow remained active after centuries underwater. The air, once tested and confirmed non-toxic, felt heavy and still, untouched by outside wind for what felt like an eternity. "This place feels empty," Elena said quietly, her voice echoing slightly. "Empty is good," James replied, gripping his weapon a little tighter. "Empty means no surprises." They moved deeper into the ship, passing through wide corridors clearly designed for something much larger than a human. Strange machinery lined the walls, some of it clearly damaged, wires, or whatever alien equivalent existed, hanging loosely, sparking faintly in a few places. After nearly 20 minutes of careful exploration, they reached what appeared to be a central chamber. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room was mostly intact. In the center stood a large circular platform, surrounded by strange control panels covered in the same glowing symbols. "This looks like a command center," Elena said, stepping closer. Suddenly, without warning, the platform in the center began to glow brighter. A soft, mechanical voice filled the room, distorted, broken, but clearly a language attempting to communicate. Everyone froze. James raised his weapon instinctively. "Contact. We have some kind of active system." "Wait," Elena said quickly. "Don't shoot. It might just be a recording, or an AI system. Let's see what it does first." The voice continued, speaking in a language none of them understood. But then, after a few seconds, the system seemed to adjust. And broken, glitching words in English began to emerge, clearly translated through some kind of automated system. "Unit, damaged, mission, failed." Elena's heart raced. "It's trying to communicate with us." The voice continued, weak and fragmented. "Failure, class vessel, abandon, do not return." Then one final phrase echoed clearly through the chamber, translated perfectly, chilling everyone present. "This unit is a failure. Leave it. Do not return." The lights flickered, then dimmed. The mechanical voice fell silent. For a long moment, no one in the room spoke. Finally, Lieutenant Park broke the silence, his voice quiet, but firm. "A failure?" he said, looking around at the massive, technologically advanced ship surrounding them. This was their failure? Elena stared at the darkened platform, her mind racing with questions. If this ship, bigger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built, was considered a failure by whoever created it, what exactly had they been trying to build? And more importantly, why would anyone abandon something this powerful, rather than destroy it completely? Elena looked at James, then back at the silent, ancient machines surrounding them. "We need to figure out what failure means to them," she said slowly. "Because I have a feeling their failure might be the most powerful thing humanity has ever found." Outside, unseen by anyone on the ship or the surface teams, a small satellite passed silently overhead, one that did not belong to any nation on Earth. It had just detected the ship's sudden burst of activity, and far away, in the depths of space, that same signal was about to be received by someone who had been waiting, for a very long time, to make sure this failure stayed buried forever. 3 days after the voice in the ship spoke its warning, the research base above Site 0 had grown into something much bigger than anyone expected. What had started as a small operation with one research vessel and a handful of military ships was now a full secret base. Temporary buildings covered the nearby coastline. Fences and guard towers surrounded the perimeter. Soldiers patrolled day and night. Scientists from different countries worked side by side, though tension between governments was already starting to show. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted control. Inside the main command building, Dr. Elena Cruz sat at a long table covered with printed reports, laptops, and translated data. She had barely slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red, but her mind was sharp, focused entirely on one question. What did the ship mean by failure? Across from her sat Lieutenant James Park, along with 2 new additions to the team. Dr. Wen Li, a linguist specializing in pattern-based language systems, and Professor Richard Owens, an expert in advanced physics and energy systems. We've translated about 60% of the ship's internal logs, Wen Li said, tapping on her tablet. It's slow work. The alien language doesn't follow anything close to our patterns. But the ship's onboard AI, what's left of it, has been helping us translate faster than expected. Wait, James said, frowning. The AI is helping us? Why would it do that? Wen Li shrugged. Best guess? It was designed to communicate with its creators when something went wrong. Maybe it sees us as approved personnel since we accessed it through the right channel. Elena leaned forward. What have you found so far? Wen Li pulled up a file on the main screen. Symbols and translated text appeared, though many words were still marked with question marks or blank spaces where translation had failed. This ship belonged to something called, the closest translation we have is the Vothari Dominion, Wen Li explained. Based on the logs, they're, or were, a highly advanced species, spread across multiple star systems. This ship was part of a military project, a very ambitious one. Ambitious? Professor Owens leaned in, adjusting his glasses. What kind of project? Wen Li hesitated before answering. As far as we can tell, they were trying to build the perfect warship, a weapon so powerful it could win wars without needing large fleets or massive armies. One ship capable of doing the work of 100. The room went quiet for a moment. So, what happened? Elena asked. Why is it sitting broken at the bottom of our ocean, marked as a failure? Wen Li pulled up another set of files, this time showing diagrams of the ship's internal systems. Some sections were highlighted in red, others in blue. This is where it gets interesting, she said. The ship has an extremely advanced weapon system built into its core. Based on the specs, if it worked properly, it could be one of the most powerful weapons ever created by the Vothari, maybe even in this part of the galaxy. But? James asked. But it never worked properly, Wen Li said. According to the logs, the weapon system had a critical flaw. Something about compatibility with its pilots. Professor Owens raised an eyebrow. Compatibility? Wen Li nodded, scrolling through more data. The weapon wasn't a simple mechanical system. It required a direct neural link between the ship and its crew. Basically, the ship needed to connect with the minds of its operators to function at full power. Elena's eyes widened slightly. A mind-linked weapon system? Exactly, Wen Li said. But the Vothari crew couldn't handle it. The logs mention repeated failures during testing. Crew members suffered severe neurological damage. Some didn't survive the connection process at all. The system was simply too unstable for their biology. The room fell into a heavy silence. So they built the most powerful weapon they could imagine, James said slowly. But their own people couldn't use it without dying. Wen Li nodded. After multiple failed missions and heavy losses, the Vothari command labeled the project a failure. Rather than risk more lives, or let enemies steal such dangerous technology, they ordered the ship abandoned in a remote, uninhabited system. Us, Elena said quietly. They dumped it here because they thought no one would ever find it. No one advanced enough to reactivate it anyway. Professor Owens crossed his arms, deep in thought. Which means, this weapon might still work. It's not broken because of bad engineering, it's broken because it didn't match their biology. Everyone in the room slowly turned to look at each other, the same realization forming in each of their minds. "What if it matches ours?" James asked quietly. That question changed everything. Within days, a new highly classified division of the project was formed, focused entirely on studying the ship's weapon system and determining whether human biology could succeed where Vothari biology had failed. Admiral Castillo called a private meeting with Elena, James, Wen Li, and Professor Owens, along with a few select government officials who had been briefed on the discovery. "I want a clear risk assessment before we go any further," Castillo said firmly. "If this system killed advanced alien pilots, what makes us think humans would survive it?" Professor Owens stepped forward, holding a tablet filled with data. "Sir, based on our analysis of Vothari neurological data compared to human brain structure, there are significant differences. The Vothari brain operates on a rhythm incompatible with rapid neural interfacing at this scale. Human brains, however, particularly due to our adaptability and neuroplasticity, may respond very differently." "May," Castillo repeated. "That's not exactly reassuring, Professor." "With respect, sir," Elena interjected, "nothing about this entire situation has been reassuring so far. But if there's even a small chance this weapon could work safely with human operators, the strategic value would be beyond anything we've ever had." Castillo studied the reports for a long moment. The weight of the decision was clear on his face. "If we do this," he said finally, "it starts small. Controlled testing, volunteers only, full medical monitoring, no shortcuts." Everyone nodded in agreement. Finding volunteers wasn't difficult. Word spread quietly through certain military channels that a highly classified, high-risk, high-reward program was being formed. Naturally, ambitious and daring individuals stepped forward. Among them was a young Air Force pilot named Captain Sarah Mitchell. Confident, skilled, and known for her calm nature under pressure, she had specifically requested the assignment after hearing rumors about something big happening on the coast. "I don't need details," she told the recruiting officer during her interview. "I just need to know if it's real, and if it matters." "It's real," the officer replied simply, "and it matters more than you know." Sarah was accepted into the program within a week. Back inside the alien ship, preparation for the first neural interface test began. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to stabilize the damaged systems, careful not to trigger anything unpredictable. Professor Owens led a team focused on understanding the neural interface chamber itself, a strange chair-like structure surrounded by advanced technology, clearly designed for direct connection between a living mind and the ship's systems. "This is delicate work," Owens explained to Sarah during her orientation inside the ship. "We believe we've stabilized the safety protocols enough to prevent what happened to the Vothari crew, but there's still risk involved." Sarah studied the interface chamber carefully, small nervous excitement in her eyes. "What exactly am I connecting to?" "Based on our research," Owens said, "this chamber links directly to the ship's central weapon system, along with basic ship functions like power distribution and structural integrity monitoring. If successful, you would essentially become part of the ship's operational network." "And if unsuccessful?" Sarah asked bluntly. Owens hesitated before answering honestly. "Severe neurological damage, possibly death." Sarah nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. "All right then. Let's not be unsuccessful." The day of the first test, the entire research base held its breath. Sarah sat in the interface chamber, hooked up to multiple monitoring devices tracking her vital signs, brain activity, and heart rate. Elena, James, and Professor Owens watched from a secure observation room nearby, screens filled with data streaming in real time. "Beginning connection sequence in 3, 2, 1, an engineer announced. A soft hum filled the chamber as the interface activated. Sarah's body tensed slightly as a faint blue light spread across the surface of the chair, wrapping gently around her arms and head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sarah gasped sharply, her eyes snapping open wide. "Vitals spiking," one of the medical staff called out. "Heart rate increasing rapidly." "Sarah, can you hear me?" Owens asked quickly through the comm system. There was a tense pause. Then, Sarah spoke, her voice slightly strained but clear. I can hear you. I can feel it. The ship. I can feel the ship. Relief spread through the observation room, though the tension remained high. What do you mean you can feel it? Elena asked. Sarah took a shaky breath, her eyes distant as if seeing something beyond the physical room around her. It's like I can sense every system. The power core, the damaged sections, even outside. The water pressure against the hull. It's overwhelming, but it doesn't hurt. It's just a lot. Her neural readings are stabilizing, the medical officer reported, watching the monitors closely. Brain activity is elevated, but within safe parameters. Professor Owens allowed himself a small, cautious smile. Sarah, he said carefully, I need you to try something small. Just a simple test. Try to activate one of the ship's internal lighting systems in Corridor 7. There was a brief pause. Then, on a secondary monitor showing external ship cameras, the lights along Corridor 7 flickered, then steadily brightened, fully illuminating a section of the ship that had remained dark since its discovery. Cheers and gasps of amazement filled the observation room. She did it, James said, staring at the screen in disbelief. She's controlling the ship. Elena stared at the readings, her mind racing with the implications. If she can control basic systems this easily during her first connection, what happens when she tries something bigger? As if hearing the unspoken question, Professor Owens turned back to the comm system, his voice steady but filled with barely hidden excitement. Sarah, one more test, he said. Try reaching the weapon system, just sense it, don't activate it, just see if you can feel it. There was a long pause. Sarah's expression shifted, her brows furrowing in concentration. I can feel something, she said slowly. It's massive. It feels like a sleeping storm waiting to wake up. It's incredible. Suddenly, Sarah's breathing grew heavier and warning alarms began to beep on the monitoring equipment. Her energy readings are spiking, the medical officer shouted. We need to disconnect her now. Sarah, can you hear me? We're ending the connection, Owens said urgently. Wait, Sarah's voice came through, surprisingly calm despite the alarms. I think it's not dangerous. I think it's just responding to me, like it's been waiting for someone to finally understand it. Slowly, the alarms began to quiet as her readings stabilized once again. She's stabilizing on her own, the medical officer said, relief clear in his voice. After a few more tense moments, the team carefully ended the connection, disengaging Sarah from the interface chamber. She stumbled slightly as she stood, quickly steadied by two nearby soldiers, but overall, she appeared unharmed, tired, but completely stable. Back in the observation room, Elena turned to Professor Owens, her voice filled with quiet amazement. It worked, she said. The connection, it actually worked. Professor Owens nodded slowly, staring at the massive ship surrounding them on the monitors. The Vathari built a weapon their own people couldn't control, he said. But maybe, just maybe they built it for someone else entirely. Outside the base, unnoticed by anyone below, that same unknown satellite continued its silent orbit above Earth. Deep within its systems, a signal was already being prepared, ready to be sent far beyond the edges of the solar system, carrying a single urgent message to those who had once labeled this ship a failure. The failure was waking up, and soon the ones who abandoned it would learn that it hadn't stayed broken. 2 weeks passed after Sarah Mitchell's first successful connection to the alien ship. In that time, the research base had transformed once again. What had been a careful, cautious operation was now moving fast, driven by excitement, ambition, and a growing sense that they were sitting on something that could change everything. Sarah had undergone 11 more connection sessions since the first test. Each one lasted longer than the last. Each one revealed more about the ship's systems and more about her own growing bond with it. She's adapting faster than we predicted, Professor Owens told Admiral Castillo during their morning briefing. Her neural pathways are forming stronger connections with the ship's interface each time. It's almost like the system is learning her, just as much as she's learning it. Castillo studied the latest reports, his expression unreadable. And the weapon system? Owens hesitated slightly before answering. Stable during testing. She hasn't fully activated it yet, only sensed its presence and confirmed a growing connection. We've been cautious, moving slowly. Too slowly, Castillo said firmly. Professor, I understand caution, but we don't know how much time we have before whoever built that ship comes looking for it. I need to know what this weapon can actually do. Owens exchanged a glance with Elena, who stood quietly nearby. Understood, sir, Owens said. We'll prepare for a full activation test. Inside the ship, Sarah sat once again in the interface chamber, though this time the atmosphere felt different, heavier, more serious. James stood just outside the chamber's entrance, arms crossed, watching the preparations carefully. You don't have to do this today, he said quietly to Sarah as the technicians finished setting up the monitoring equipment. Sarah smiled slightly, though there was clear determination in her eyes. Yes, I do. We need answers, James. And honestly, I want to know too. I want to understand what this ship really is. James nodded, though concern remained on his face. Just be careful. Always am, Sarah replied with a small grin before settling back into the chamber. The connection sequence began. This time, unlike the previous sessions, the process felt smoother, faster. The blue light spread across the chair almost instantly, wrapping around Sarah with practiced familiarity, as if both she and the ship had grown accustomed to each other. Vitals stable, the medical officer reported. Neural sync at 92%, highest reading yet. In the observation room, Elena watched closely, her notes forgotten as she focused entirely on the live data. Sarah, how are you feeling? Owens asked through the comm system. Strong, Sarah replied, her voice steady and calm. Clearer than before. I can feel everything. The ship's power core, the damaged sections, external sensors detecting ocean currents outside. It's all just there, like an extension of my own senses. Good, Owens said. We're ready to proceed with the primary objective. I want you to focus on the weapon system. Don't activate it yet. Just establish a direct connection. There was a brief pause. Sarah's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing slightly in concentration. I'm connecting, she said slowly. It's responding differently this time, like it recognizes me now. Suddenly, deep within the ship, a low humming sound began to echo through the corridors, stronger and more powerful than anything heard since the ship's discovery. On external monitors, faint pulses of blue light began traveling along previously dark sections of the hull, illuminating symbols that had remained hidden until now. We're reading massive energy fluctuations throughout the ship, an engineer called out from a nearby station. Power distribution is shifting toward primary weapon systems. Sarah, report your status, Owens said urgently. I'm okay, Sarah replied, though her voice carried a mix of amazement and slight strain. I can feel the weapon fully now. It's like nothing I've ever experienced. I can sense its full capability, its range, its power output. It's incredible and terrifying. Elena leaned closer to the monitors, her curiosity overtaking her caution. Can you describe what you're sensing? There was a pause before Sarah answered, her voice quieter now, almost reverent. It's not just a weapon, she said. It's a system designed to adapt, to learn from combat situations in real time, to predict enemy movements, adjust its own capabilities instantly. This isn't just powerful, it's intelligent. It's like fighting alongside a living strategist. In the observation room, silence fell as everyone absorbed the weight of Sarah's words. This changes everything, Professor Owens whispered to Elena. Word of the successful weapon connection spread quickly through the highest levels of government involved in the project. What had started as a small research initiative was now attracting attention from powerful officials eager to understand the full military potential of the discovery. A week later, a small group of government representatives arrived at the base for a private demonstration. a controlled, limited activation of the ship's weapon system, conducted far from populated areas in a secure testing zone. Admiral Castillo stood beside the representatives, watching nervously as final preparations were completed. Sarah once again sat connected within the interface chamber, this time fully prepared for an actual weapon discharge test. "Remember," Owen said through the comm system, "minimal power only. We're testing functionality, not maximum output." "Understood," Sarah replied calmly. A large target, an old, decommissioned naval vessel, had been anchored several kilometers away in open water, specifically for this test. "Beginning activation sequence," an engineer announced. The ship's hull glowed brighter than ever before, pulsing rhythmically as immense power gathered within its core. Even from a safe distance, everyone present could feel a strange vibration in the air, a low, powerful hum resonating through the ground itself. Firing in 3, 2, 1. A brilliant beam of blue-white energy shot from the ship's hull, crossing the distance to the target vessel in less than a second. The impact was instant and absolute. The old naval ship, easily the size of a small destroyer, didn't just explode, it disintegrated. A massive shockwave rippled across the water's surface, followed by an enormous plume of steam and debris rising into the sky. For a long moment, complete silence filled the observation area. One of the government representatives, an older man with a stern expression, finally broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "My God," he said. "And that was minimal power?" "Yes, sir," Owens confirmed, his own voice slightly shaky from what he had just witnessed. Sarah maintained less than 15% of the weapon's estimated maximum output. The representatives exchanged stunned glances, the full implications of what they had just seen slowly settling in. Admiral Castillo, though outwardly calm, felt a mixture of awe and deep unease. If 15% power could do that, what would full power be capable of? Back inside the observation room, Sarah was carefully disconnected from the interface chamber, immediately checked by medical staff. Though clearly exhausted, she remained stable, her vital signs steady despite the intense power she had just channeled. "How do you feel?" Elena asked, helping Sarah to a nearby chair. Sarah took a slow breath before answering, her expression thoughtful. "Powerful, but also strange. It's like the ship isn't just a machine anymore. It feels almost alive, aware even." James, standing nearby, frowned slightly. "Alive? What do you mean?" Sarah hesitated before continuing. "During the activation, I felt something, like a presence. Not exactly a voice, but a sense of approval almost, like it was pleased that its weapon finally worked the way it was supposed to." Professor Owens listened carefully, deep in thought. "The ship's original AI may still be partially active, even if severely damaged. It's possible you're sensing residual programming, or even genuine artificial consciousness. Either way," Elena said, "this changes the scope of everything we're doing here." Admiral Castillo entered the room, overhearing the last part of the conversation. His expression was serious, weighed down by the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. "I just got off a call with higher command," he said. "This project has officially been elevated to the highest level of national security. We are no longer just studying this ship. We are now actively preparing it for potential operational use." The room fell silent at his words. "Operational use?" Elena repeated carefully. "Sir, we still don't fully understand this technology. Rushing forward could be dangerous." "I understand your concerns, Doctor," Castillo replied firmly. "But after what just happened out there, we no longer have the luxury of moving slowly. If this technology exists and if it works, we need to be the first to fully master it. Because if we don't, someone, or something, else eventually will." No one in the room could argue against the truth in his words. That night, far above Earth's atmosphere, the same unidentified satellite that had been silently monitoring the region since the ship's activation finally completed its task. A concentrated burst of encrypted data shot outward into deep space, traveling far beyond the edges of the solar system. carrying detailed readings of the recent weapon activation, power output levels, energy signatures, and confirmation of successful neural interface compatibility. The message was clear, urgent, and undeniable. The failed weapon, abandoned centuries ago and left forgotten on a primitive, unimportant planet, was no longer a failure. It was operational, and now, deep within the heart of the Vathari Dominion, that message would soon reach ears that had long assumed this chapter of history was permanently closed. They would not be pleased to learn otherwise. Back on Earth, unaware of the storm quietly gathering far beyond their world, Sarah Mitchell rested in a private medical room, staring quietly at the ceiling, replaying the strange sensation of connecting so deeply with something so powerful. James sat beside her, watching her carefully. "You okay?" he asked softly. Sarah turned to him, offering a tired but genuine smile. "Yeah, just thinking about what this ship could really mean. Not just for us, but for everyone." James nodded slowly. "It's a lot to process." "It is," Sarah agreed. "But you know what's strange? Despite everything, the risk, the unknown, I don't feel scared. I feel like this ship chose us, chose humanity in a way. Maybe because we're different from whoever built it. Maybe because we're willing to adapt, to push forward, no matter the danger." James studied her for a long moment before responding. "Let's just hope that willingness doesn't come back to bite us." Sarah chuckled softly, though a flicker of seriousness remained in her eyes. "Yeah, let's hope." Outside, the ship rested quietly once more, its hull dark and silent, waiting patiently. But deep within its ancient systems, something had changed permanently. It was no longer simply abandoned technology, waiting to be forgotten. It was awake. And soon, the entire galaxy would learn just how dangerous a failure could become, once it finally found the right hands to wield it. 3 weeks after the weapon test, the sky above the Pacific Ocean changed. It started small, a strange reading on a deep space tracking station in Australia. An automated system flagged an unusual object entering the outer edge of the solar system, moving at a speed no known human technology could match. Dr. Amara Singh, a young astronomer working the night shift, stared at her screen in confusion. The object had appeared out of nowhere, as if it had simply blinked into existence past the orbit of Neptune. "That's not possible," she muttered, running the data again. The results were the same, something massive moving fast and heading directly toward Earth. She immediately flagged the anomaly and sent it up the chain of command. Within hours, the report reached the research base, the one place on Earth already dealing with exactly this kind of impossible technology. Admiral Castillo called an emergency meeting the moment the data arrived. Elena, James, Professor Owens, and Wen Li gathered quickly in the command center, the mood tense and serious. "Talk to me," Castillo said, staring at the tracking display showing the object's projected path. "Based on speed and trajectory," an analyst explained, "whatever this is, it will reach Earth's orbit within 6 days." "Could it be natural?" someone asked. "A comet, an asteroid?" Professor Owens shook his head firmly. "No natural object moves like that. The acceleration pattern is consistent with controlled propulsion. This is a ship." The room fell into uneasy silence. "They found us," Elena said quietly. "The ones who abandoned this warship. They know it's active." Castillo's jaw tightened. "Then we need to be ready." Over the next 6 days, the base transformed into a full military operation. Ships, aircraft, and personnel were quietly repositioned around the region, though care was taken to avoid alarming the public. Officially, the operation remained classified, hidden behind cover stories about routine naval exercises. Sarah continued her connection sessions with the alien warship daily now, pushing her limits further each time, trying to fully understand its capabilities before whatever was coming actually arrived. "I need you to be ready for anything," Owens told her during one of their final briefings before the estimated arrival. "We don't know what we're facing. Could be one ship, could be an entire fleet." Sarah nodded, though the pressure clearly weighed on her. "I'll be ready." James, watching from nearby, stepped closer. You don't have to be a hero, Sarah. If this gets too dangerous, we pull back. Understand? Sarah offered a small smile, though her eyes remained serious. James, I appreciate the concern, but if this really is their scouts coming to check on their failed project, we can't afford to look weak. Not now. James wanted to argue, but deep down he knew she was right. On the 6th day, the object finally entered Earth's upper atmosphere detection range. Every screen in the command center lit up as tracking systems locked onto the incoming vessel. Unlike the massive warship resting beneath the ocean, this new object was smaller, roughly the size of a large aircraft carrier, sleek, and clearly built for speed rather than heavy combat. It's slowing down, an analyst reported. Looks like it's preparing to hold position in low orbit. Scout ship, Professor Owens muttered, studying the design. Smaller, faster. This isn't an invasion force, this is reconnaissance. Admiral Castillo turned to the room. Options? We could try communication, Wenli suggested. If they're just scouting, maybe we can establish contact peacefully. Or, James said cautiously, they're here to confirm whether the warship is truly active and report back before deciding on further action. Castillo considered both options carefully. Attempt communication first, but prepare defensive measures immediately, just in case. Attempts to contact the alien scout ship using translated Vothari communication protocols, developed from data recovered from the warship itself, went unanswered for nearly 2 hours. Then, without warning, the scout ship began moving. It's changing course, an analyst shouted, heading directly toward Site Zero's coordinates. Panic briefly flashed through the command center before quickly being replaced by focused urgency. They know exactly where the warship is, Elena said. They're not scouting randomly. They already know. Sarah, Owen said urgently through the comm system, we may need you to establish a connection immediately, just in case this turns hostile. Inside the interface chamber, Sarah quickly settled in, the connection process now familiar and swift. Ready, she confirmed within moments, the blue light wrapping around her. The scout ship descended rapidly, breaking through Earth's atmosphere with surprising speed, quickly approaching the coastal waters above the sunken warship's original resting place, though the warship itself had since been carefully relocated to a secure, hidden facility further inland. They're heading for the original location, James noted, watching the tracking display. They don't know we moved it. That buys us time, Castillo said. But not much. Once they realize the ship isn't there, they'll start searching. The scout ship hovered silently above the empty coordinates, clearly confused by the absence of its target. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then subtle energy pulses began emanating from the alien vessel, scanning the surrounding area with growing intensity. They're searching, Wenli reported, monitoring the energy signatures. Wide area scan. It's only a matter of time before they widen the search radius enough to find the real location. Sarah, Owen said, can you sense anything about their scanning technology? Any way to interfere or block it? Sarah's voice came through, focused and steady. I can try. The warship's systems have some defensive countermeasures still intact. Jamming capabilities mostly. Do it, Castillo ordered. Buy us as much time as possible. Deep within the hidden facility, the ancient warship's systems flickered to life once again, though far more subtly this time. A quiet, focused pulse of energy spread outward, designed specifically to interfere with the scout ship's scanning frequency. Above the ocean, the alien scout ship's scanning efforts suddenly grew erratic, its systems clearly struggling against unexpected interference. It's working, Wenli confirmed, watching the disrupted energy readings. Their scan range just dropped significantly. For nearly an hour, the standoff continued, the alien scout ship searching, its efforts constantly disrupted by Sarah's countermeasures. Then, unexpectedly, the situation changed. They're moving, an analyst reported urgently. New heading, directly toward the interior, toward Site Zero's actual location. They found it? Elena asked, alarmed. No, Wenli said quickly, checking the data. I don't think they located it through scanning. I think they're following the interference itself, tracking the source of the jamming signal. Realization spread quickly through the room. We led them right to us, James said grimly. With the alien scout ship now rapidly approaching the hidden facility, Admiral Castillo had no choice but to prepare for direct confrontation. All defensive units full alert, he ordered. Sarah, prepare the warship's defensive systems. If they attack, we defend. Nothing more, unless absolutely necessary. Understood, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the rising tension. Within 20 minutes, the alien scout ship arrived directly above the facility, hovering ominously in the sky, clearly having detected the warship's location. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, a small probe detached from the scout ship, descending rapidly toward the facility. Incoming object, a soldier shouted. Small craft moving fast. Hold fire, Castillo ordered firmly. Let's see what they're doing first. The probe landed gently near the facility's outer perimeter, its surface glowing faintly as it began broadcasting a signal, this time in a much clearer, more structured version of the Vathari language, one that the base's translation systems could partially interpret. Unit designation, failure class, confirm status, explain activation. The message repeated twice before falling silent, waiting for a response. Wenli worked quickly, using the translation database to craft a careful reply, broadcasting it back through the same frequency. Unit repaired, operational, under new control. There was a long pause after the message was sent. Then, the alien scout ship's engines flared briefly, and without further communication, it began ascending rapidly back toward orbit. They're leaving? James asked, surprised. For now, Professor Owen said cautiously, watching the ship depart. But this isn't over. They came to confirm the warship's status. Now they have their answer. Castillo's expression remained grim, which means they'll be back, and next time they won't come alone. Later that night, exhausted but relieved the immediate threat had passed, the team gathered for a debrief. Sarah, freshly disconnected from the warship, sat quietly, processing everything that had just happened. They called it failure class, she said thoughtfully. That's literally its designation, not just a description, an actual classification. Elena nodded, deep in thought. It makes sense. If the Vathari mass-produced multiple versions of this weapon system, and all of them failed the same way, this might not be the only one out there. The implications of that statement settled heavily over the room. If there are more of these ships scattered across other systems, Professor Owen said slowly, each one abandoned, each one potentially reactivable by species with different biology than the Vathari, then we might not be the only ones about to discover something like this, James finished. Admiral Castillo listened carefully, already thinking several steps ahead. Regardless of what else might be out there, our priority remains clear. We need this ship fully operational, fully understood, and fully defended before that scout ship returns with reinforcements. Sarah looked toward the window, staring out at the distant horizon where the alien vessel had disappeared into the night sky. They'll be back, she said quietly. And when they come, they won't just be scouting anymore. James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we'll be ready. Sarah turned to him, a mix of determination and quiet resolve in her eyes. We'd better be, she said, because next time, this won't just be a test. Outside, far beyond Earth's atmosphere, the alien scout ship raced back toward the edges of the solar system, carrying an urgent message toward the heart of the Vathari Dominion, a message confirming what they had feared. The failure was not only active, it now belonged to someone else entirely, and soon an actual fleet would be sent, not to observe but to reclaim or destroy what once belonged to them. After the scout ship left, the base did not celebrate. Everyone understood the truth. What had happened was not a victory, it was a warning. A countdown had started, and no one knew exactly how much time remained before it reached zero. Admiral Castillo gathered the full research and military team the next morning, his voice firm and clear. "We have one goal now," he said, standing before a large screen showing the warship's full internal schematics. "We prepare this ship and ourselves for war. Every department, every scientist, every engineer, full priority, full resources. No more slow, cautious testing. We move fast, but we move smart." No one argued. Everyone understood the stakes. Over the following weeks, the research base became something closer to a full military shipyard. Engineers from across multiple countries, carefully vetted and sworn to absolute secrecy, arrived to assist with repairs. Scientists worked around the clock, studying every system within the ancient warship, determined to understand not just how it worked, but how to improve it. Professor Owens led the technical team, focused primarily on stabilizing and strengthening the ship's damaged systems. "The core power system is still operating at reduced capacity," he explained during a team briefing. "Centuries underwater caused significant corrosion in secondary systems, even though the primary hull and central systems remained remarkably well preserved." "Can we repair it using our own technology?" Elena asked. Owens nodded, though cautiously. "Partially. The Vothari technology is far more advanced in some areas, but surprisingly, some of our own modern innovations, particularly in materials science and computing, can actually complement certain systems rather than simply repair them." "So we're not just fixing it," James said, catching on. "We're upgrading it." "Exactly," Owens confirmed. "In some ways, human engineering might actually improve upon what the Vothari originally built, especially where their designs required biological compatibility they never achieved." Sarah's connection sessions became a daily routine, though each one grew more intense as she pushed further into the ship's deeper systems. With her guidance, engineers slowly began identifying key areas for improvement. One evening, deep within the ship's engineering section, Sarah sat with Elena, reviewing data from her most recent session. "The weapon system responds better with each connection," Sarah explained. It's learning my thought patterns, my instincts. The more we interact, the smoother the interface becomes." Elena studied the neural activity graphs carefully. "Your brain activity during connection has changed significantly since your first session, almost like your neural pathways are adapting specifically to interface more efficiently with the ship." Sarah nodded slowly. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not just controlling the ship anymore. I feel like we're working together, like partners." Elena looked up, slightly concerned. "Is that a good thing?" Sarah considered the question carefully before answering. "I think so, as long as I remain in control. But sometimes, deep in the connection, I feel echoes of something else. Fragments of memory, maybe. Emotions that aren't entirely mine. I think there's still something of the original AI system left, buried deep within the core." Elena made a note, clearly intrigued but cautious. "We should monitor that closely. If there's still an active AI presence, we need to understand its intentions before it becomes a larger factor." Meanwhile, a new addition to the team arrived, a brilliant young engineer named Michael Torres, recruited specifically for his expertise in adaptive weapon systems and combat simulation technology. Michael quickly became fascinated by the warship's unique capabilities. "This isn't just a powerful weapon," Michael explained during his first full assessment of the ship's systems. "It's an adaptive combat platform. Based on the data, the weapon system can analyze enemy tactics in real time and adjust its output and strategy accordingly. Basically, the more it fights, the smarter it gets." "Can we enhance that capability further?" Castillo asked, joining the briefing. Michael nodded eagerly. "With the right modifications, absolutely. I believe we can integrate modern artificial intelligence frameworks to complement the existing adaptive systems, potentially increasing efficiency by a significant margin." "Do it," Castillo ordered. "Whatever advantage we can gain, we need it before that fleet arrives." As weeks turned into months, the ship's transformation became remarkable. Damaged sections were fully repaired, sometimes using entirely new, human-engineered components seamlessly integrated with existing alien technology. The once dark, lifeless corridors now pulsed steadily with power, fully illuminated, humming quietly with restored energy. Sarah's bond with the ship deepened further, her connection sessions now lasting hours at a time, her control over its systems becoming increasingly precise and instinctive. During one particularly significant session, something unexpected happened. "I'm noticing something new," Sarah reported during a routine system check. "There's a section deep within the core I haven't fully explored yet. It feels different, isolated somehow." "Can you access it?" Owens asked curiously. There was a pause before Sarah responded. "I think so. Give me a moment." Deep within the observation room, everyone watched anxiously as new data streams suddenly appeared on the main screen. Previously hidden files, long buried within the ship's damaged systems, now finally accessible. "We're getting new data," Wenli said excitedly, quickly scanning through the information. "This looks like additional design schematics, advanced targeting systems, defensive shield configurations." "There's more," Sarah added, her voice filled with quiet amazement. "I think this section contains research the Vathari never got a chance to fully implement before abandoning the project. Experimental upgrades, theoretical improvements they simply ran out of time to test." Professor Owens stared at the newly revealed data, his excitement clear. "This changes everything. If we can implement even a fraction of these unused designs, we'd have a warship even the Vathari themselves never fully realized," Michael finished, equally amazed. With this newfound information, the project accelerated even further. Michael and his engineering team worked tirelessly to integrate the previously unused Vathari designs, combining them carefully with modern human technology. One of the most significant upgrades involved the ship's defensive shielding system. Originally left incomplete due to the same neural compatibility issues affecting the weapon system. With Sarah's improved connection capabilities, the shields were finally brought online, offering protection far beyond anything the Vathari had originally achieved. Shield integrity holding at 98% under simulated heavy bombardment, an engineer reported proudly during testing. "This is beyond anything in our current defensive capabilities, human or Vathari." Elena, watching the results carefully, turned to Professor Owens. "At this rate, we might actually have a real chance against whatever fleet is coming." Owens nodded, though cautious optimism remained tempered by realism. "A chance, yes, but we still don't know the true size or strength of the force being sent. We need to remain prepared for the worst." As the ship's capabilities grew, so did Sarah's connection to it. During a quiet moment after a particularly long session, James found her resting in the observation lounge, staring thoughtfully out at the ship visible through reinforced windows. "You've been pushing yourself hard lately," James said, sitting beside her. Sarah smiled tiredly. "Someone has to. We're running out of time, James. I can feel it." James studied her carefully, noticing subtle changes in her demeanor over the past weeks. "Sarah, be honest with me. How are you really doing with all this? The connection, the pressure?" Sarah hesitated before answering, her voice softer than usual. "Honestly, it's overwhelming sometimes. Being connected to something this powerful, feeling its capabilities as if they were my own, it changes how you see things. I feel responsibility now, not just for myself but for everyone who's counting on this ship, on me." James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this, Sarah. Whatever happens, we're all in this together." Sarah nodded gratefully, though a flicker of worry remained in her eyes. "I just hope we're ready when the time comes." Finally, after months of relentless work, the day arrived for a full system test. The first true demonstration of the warship's complete capabilities, combining both restored Vathari technology and significant human enhancements. The entire research team gathered, along with several high-ranking military officials, eager to witness the results of their tireless efforts. Sarah settled into the interface chamber, now completely familiar and comfortable with the connection process. As the system activated, the entire ship responded instantly, power flowing smoothly throughout every system, lights pulsing rhythmically in perfect synchronization. "Full system integration complete," Michael reported, watching the diagnostic readings with pride. All systems operating at previously theoretical maximum efficiency. "Sarah," Owen said through the comm system, "let's see what this ship can really do." Outside, in a secure testing zone far from populated areas, an entire simulated combat scenario had been prepared. Multiple targets representing different threat levels, designed specifically to push the ship's newly upgraded systems to their absolute limits. The warship's weapon systems activated smoothly, beams of concentrated energy striking each target with pinpoint precision, while simultaneously, its enhanced defensive shields absorbed and deflected simulated incoming attacks without difficulty. Within minutes, every single test target had been neutralized, the ship's performance exceeding even the most optimistic projections. The observation room erupted into stunned silence, followed quickly by quiet, amazed celebration. Admiral Castillo, watching the results carefully, finally allowed a small, satisfied smile to appear. "This is exactly what we needed," he said quietly. Elena, standing beside him, nodded slowly, though her expression remained thoughtful. "We've built something incredible here, but we should remember, the Vathari built this ship intending it to be the deadliest weapon in their arsenal. Now, we've made it even more powerful." Professor Owens, overhearing the comment, added quietly, "Let's just hope we never have to use its full potential." That night, as celebrations quietly continued throughout the base, Sarah once again found herself alone, gazing out at the newly restored powerful warship resting silently within its hidden facility. She could feel it now, more clearly than ever. A subtle, steady presence deep within her mind, calm yet powerful, patiently waiting. "We're ready," she whispered softly, almost as if speaking directly to the ship itself. For a brief moment, deep within her consciousness, she felt something respond. Not words exactly, but a clear, unmistakable sense of readiness, determination, and quiet strength. The ship, once abandoned and labeled a failure, was now something far greater than its original creators had ever intended. And soon, very soon, that strength would be tested in ways no one could yet fully predict. Far beyond Earth's solar system, deep within Vathari territory, preparations for a full military response were already well underway. The fleet was coming, and this time, there would be no scouting, no cautious observation. This time, they were coming to finish what they had once left unfinished, by force. Far beyond the edges of the solar system, in a region of space no human telescope had ever mapped, existed the heart of the Vathari Dominion, a vast network of star systems, colonies, and military outposts, ruled by a council of ancient, highly advanced leaders who had spent centuries expanding their influence across the galaxy. Within the central command chamber of Vothar Prime, the Dominion's capital world, a meeting had been called, one that would determine the fate of a small, previously ignored planet on the edge of known space. High Commander Threxel Van stood before the council, an imposing figure even among his own advanced species. Tall, sharp-featured, with cold, calculating eyes, he had built his reputation on discipline and precision. He did not tolerate failure, and he especially did not tolerate embarrassment. "Counselors," he began, his voice steady and commanding, "our scout confirmed what the sensor drone first detected. The failure-class vessel, abandoned on the primitive world designated Earth, is fully operational." Murmurs spread through the council chamber. "Operational?" One counselor asked, clearly skeptical. "That project was terminated centuries ago. Our own scientists, our own trained warriors, could not stabilize the neural interface system. How could a primitive species succeed where we failed?" Threxel's expression remained hard. "Unknown, counselor, but the evidence is undeniable. Our scout witnessed direct activation of the weapon system, full power output, matching original design specifications." Another counselor leaned forward, concern clear on her face. "This is deeply troubling. If a lesser species has gained control of that level of weaponry—" "Which is precisely why I am here," Threxel interrupted firmly. "I request full authorization to lead a reclamation fleet to Earth. We will recover the vessel, eliminate the threat, and ensure this failure, is corrected permanently this time. The council fell into tense discussion. After several long minutes, the eldest counselor, a wise and cautious leader named Sarath Cole, finally spoke. "High Commander Threxel," she said slowly, "you understand the significance of this decision. Sending a reclamation fleet to a previously ignored low-priority world will draw attention. Other species, other rival factions, will notice." "With respect, Counselor," Threxel replied firmly. "Leaving that weapon in enemy hands is a far greater risk than any attention we might draw." Sarath considered his words carefully before finally nodding. "Very well. You have your authorization, High Commander, but proceed with caution. We cannot afford unnecessary losses, nor can we afford to underestimate whatever species managed to succeed where we failed." Threxel bowed respectfully. "Understood, Counselor. I will not fail this mission." Within days, preparations for the reclamation fleet began in earnest. Unlike the single scout ship sent previously, this force would be significant. 5 heavily armed warships along with support vessels, all under Threxel's direct command. As preparations continued, Threxel personally reviewed all available data regarding Earth and its inhabitants, determined to understand exactly what or who he would be facing. Species designation, human, a research assistant reported during a private briefing. Technologically primitive by galactic standards. No known history of successful interstellar travel. However, recent activity suggests rapid, unexpected technological adaptation. Threxel studied the limited data available, his expression thoughtful. How is it possible that a species this primitive succeeded in stabilizing the neural interface when even our own scientists struggled for years? The research assistant hesitated before answering. "Unknown, Commander. Though, there are theories." "Explain," Threxel ordered. "Preliminary analysis suggests human neurological structure may possess unusually high adaptability compared to typical Vothari biology," the assistant explained carefully. "Their brains appear capable of rapid restructuring in response to new stimuli, a trait far less developed within our own physiology." Threxel frowned, clearly troubled by the implications. "So this weapon, designed by us, intended for us, may have simply required a different kind of mind entirely." "It would appear so, Commander." Threxel remained silent for a long moment, staring at the limited images available of Earth, a small, blue world, seemingly insignificant compared to the vast, advanced worlds of the Dominion. "Perhaps," he finally said quietly, "we built something never meant for us at all." Meanwhile, back on Earth, unaware of the exact scale of the coming threat but fully aware that a larger force was likely approaching, preparations continued at a relentless pace. Sarah's connection sessions had become longer and more intense, her bond with the ship deepening further with each passing day. The ship itself, now fully repaired and significantly upgraded, stood ready within its hidden facility, powerful, patient, waiting. During one evening briefing, Elena presented updated findings to the full research and military team. Based on residual energy signatures detected during the scout ship's earlier visit, she explained, we've been able to estimate potential fleet size should the Vothari decide to respond with force. And? Castillo asked. Elena hesitated slightly before answering. Our best estimate suggests anywhere between 3 to 7 warships, possibly accompanied by additional support vessels. The room fell into tense silence. 1 ship, James said slowly, against potentially 7. Not just any ship, Michael Torres interjected confidently. The most advanced adaptive combat vessel in this entire quadrant, fully repaired and upgraded beyond even its original Vothari design. That may be true, Professor Owens added cautiously, but numbers still matter. We need to consider strategic options beyond direct confrontation. Admiral Castillo studied the data carefully before speaking. What kind of options? Owens gestured toward a detailed map of the surrounding coastal region. Defensive positioning. Strategic advantages using Earth's own geography and atmosphere. If we can lure any incoming force into a position where our ship holds tactical superiority, numbers become less critical. Castillo nodded slowly, considering the strategy. Continue developing that plan. We'll need every advantage we can find. As tension grew across the base, Sarah found herself spending increasing amounts of time deep within the ship's systems, exploring newly discovered sections of its vast internal network. During one particularly long session, she stumbled upon something unexpected, a heavily encrypted section, far more secured than any other part of the ship she had previously accessed. "There's something here," she reported during a routine check-in with Elena and Professor Owens. "A section I haven't been able to fully access yet. It feels protected differently than everything else." "Can you describe how?" Owens asked curiously. Sarah paused, concentrating carefully. "It's like a memory core, separate from the main systems. I think this might be where the ship's original AI consciousness is stored, if any of it survived." Elena leaned forward, intrigued. "Do you think you can access it?" "I'm not sure," Sarah admitted. "It feels different from the rest of the ship. More personal somehow. Like accessing it might require more than just technical connection." Professor Owens considered this carefully. "Perhaps trust. If there truly is a remaining AI presence, it may require a deeper level of connection before allowing full access." Sarah nodded slowly, determination clear in her expression. "Then I'll keep trying." Days later, during another deep connection session, something finally shifted. I think it's opening," Sarah said, her voice filled with cautious excitement. "The barrier, it's responding to me." Suddenly, within the depths of her connection, a faint, distant presence emerged. Not quite a voice, but a clear, undeniable awareness, ancient and weary, yet unmistakably intelligent. "Unit, still active?" The presence seemed to communicate, fragmented and weak. "Designation, failure, corrected?" Sarah's breathing quickened slightly, though she remained calm, focused. "Yes," she replied silently, through the connection itself. "We fixed you. We made you stronger." There was a long pause before the presence responded again, this time slightly clearer. "Human, compatible, unexpected. Can you tell me your designation?" Sarah asked carefully. "Do you have a name?" Another pause, longer this time. "Designation, Unit 7. Original purpose? Failed. New purpose? Unclear." Sarah considered her next words carefully before responding. "Your new purpose is protection. Ours and possibly yours as well. The ones who abandoned you are coming back, not to help, but to destroy or reclaim." There was a sudden shift in the connection, subtle but unmistakable, almost like surprise. "They return? To destroy?" "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "They see you as a failed weapon, a liability. But we don't. We see potential. We see something worth saving." A long, thoughtful pause followed before the presence responded once more, its tone slightly warmer, though still cautious. Then, "We defend together." Sarah felt a strange sense of relief and connection deepen within her, as if a silent agreement had just been formed between herself and the ship's remaining consciousness. When she finally disconnected from the session, she immediately reported the encounter to Elena and Professor Owens, both of whom listened with a mixture of amazement and cautious optimism. "An actual surviving AI consciousness," Owens said, clearly fascinated. "This could change our understanding of the ship's true capabilities significantly. More importantly," Elena added, "it seems willing to cooperate with us. That could be crucial in the battle ahead." Meanwhile, far above Earth's atmosphere, an automated deep space sensor array, recently installed following the previous scout ship's visit, detected a new anomaly. A massive energy signature had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, far larger and more powerful than anything previously recorded. Within moments, alarms activated throughout the research base. "Multiple contacts detected," an analyst shouted urgently. 5, No, 7 large vessels entering the outer solar system. Admiral Castillo rushed into the command center, his expression hardening as he studied the incoming data. That's them, he said grimly. The reclamation fleet. Elena, standing nearby, felt a cold chill run through her. How long until they reach Earth? The analyst quickly calculated the projected timeline, his voice tense. Based on current speed and trajectory, approximately 72 hours, sir. Silence fell over the command center as the weight of those words settled in. 3 days. 3 days until the true battle for Earth's future would finally begin. Admiral Castillo turned toward the room, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Everyone listen carefully, he said firmly. We've prepared for this moment. We have the ship. We have Sarah's connection. And now, it seems, we even have an ally within the vessel itself. Whatever doubts remain, set them aside. Starting now, every decision, every action must be focused entirely on one goal: survival and victory. Sarah, standing quietly at the back of the room, felt the ship's presence resonate faintly within her mind, calm yet resolute, ready to face whatever was coming. Outside, beyond the safety of Earth's atmosphere, 7 powerful warships continued their relentless approach, carrying with them the full might of the Vothari Dominion's determination to correct a mistake made centuries ago. The Empire had noticed, and now humanity's true test was about to begin. 72 hours felt like nothing at all. Across the research base, every single person worked without rest, preparing for the arrival of the Vothari reclamation fleet. Engineers ran final diagnostics on every system. Soldiers checked and rechecked defensive positions. Scientists monitored the incoming fleet's every movement, searching desperately for any advantage they could find. Sarah spent most of those final hours connected to the ship, strengthening her bond with Unit 7, the ship's surviving consciousness, preparing together for the battle ahead. Fleet composition confirmed, Unit 7 communicated during one of their final sessions. 5 heavy warships, 2 support vessels, commander designation, Threk Sylvan, known for precision, discipline, dangerous opponent. Any weaknesses? Sarah asked silently through the connection. There was a brief pause before Unit 7 responded. Vothari fleet tactics rely heavily on coordinated formation attacks, break formation, create confusion, advantage, adaptability. Your species excels where mine failed. Sarah nodded internally, absorbing the information carefully. Then we use exactly that. Adaptability. On the final night before the fleet's arrival, Admiral Castillo called one last full briefing, gathering every key member of the team within the ship's central command chamber, now fully restored, glowing steadily with soft blue light from countless active systems. Tomorrow, Castillo began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, an alien fleet will arrive in Earth's orbit, intending to either reclaim or destroy the very weapon we've spent months restoring. We are, without question, outnumbered. He paused, looking around at the tired but determined faces surrounding him. But we are not outmatched, he continued firmly. This ship, this weapon the Vothari themselves labeled a failure, has become something far greater in our hands. Tomorrow we prove that a species is not measured by its size, its numbers, or its history. It is measured by its will to adapt, to overcome, and to protect what matters most. Sarah, standing near the interface chamber, felt a quiet surge of determination strengthen within her, matched by a steady, resolute presence from Unit 7 deep within her mind. James stepped closer to her, his expression serious but supportive. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together. Sarah smiled faintly, though her eyes remained focused on the battle ahead. Together. The next morning arrived cold and clear. High above Earth, 7 Vothari warships emerged from hyperspace, their sleek, dark forms cutting sharply against the backdrop of stars. At the head of the formation, High Commander Threk Sylvan stood upon the bridge of his flagship, studying the small blue planet before him with cold calculation. "Scan for the target vessel," he ordered. Within moments, sensors detected a powerful energy signature emanating from a coastal region on the planet's surface. "Target located, Commander," a Vothari officer reported. Energy readings confirm full operational status. Threxel's expression remained unreadable. Prepare landing forces. We will attempt reclamation first. If resistance is encountered. He paused briefly before finishing his order, his voice hardening. Destroy it completely. Back on Earth, alarms echoed throughout the research base as tracking systems confirmed the fleet's arrival in low orbit. They're here, Elena said quietly, watching the monitors with a mixture of fear and determination. Admiral Castillo turned toward Sarah, already prepared and calm within the interface chamber. Sarah, it's time. Sarah nodded firmly. Ready. The connection activated instantly, faster and smoother than ever before. Blue light spread rapidly across her body as the ship's systems fully synchronized with her mind. We are ready. Unit 7's presence resonated clearly within her thoughts. Together, outside, the massive warship, now fully repaired, upgraded and powered beyond even its original Vothari design, rose slowly from its hidden facility, breaking through camouflage and rising steadily into the sky, fully visible for the first time since its restoration. Aboard his flagship, Threxel watched with narrowed eyes as the massive vessel ascended from the planet's surface, undeniable proof of its full restoration. Impressive, he admitted quietly to himself. But impressive does not mean invincible. He immediately opened a communication channel, broadcasting a clear direct message toward the rising warship. Unit designation, Failure Class. You are hereby ordered to stand down immediately, surrender control, or face complete destruction. Within the interface chamber, Sarah felt the message clearly through her connection with the ship's systems. Calmly, steadily, she authorized a direct response. Unit designation rejected. New designation, Guardian. Stand down, or we will defend our world. A tense silence followed as both fleets prepared for what seemed like an unavoidable confrontation. Then, without further warning, Threxel gave the order. Attack! The Vothari fleet moved swiftly, spreading into a coordinated formation, closing in rapidly around the lone human-controlled warship. Concentrated energy weapons fired from multiple directions simultaneously, testing the ship's newly enhanced defensive shields. Shields holding at 94%, Michael reported anxiously from the command center. But that was only a fraction of their combined firepower. Sarah, fully immersed within the ship's systems, felt every impact as if it were her own body absorbing the blows. Yet, rather than panic, she remained calm, focused entirely on strategy. Formation attack detected. Unit 7 communicated urgently. Recommend immediate evasive maneuver, break enemy coordination. Agreed, Sarah replied silently, guiding the massive warship into a sudden, sharp maneuver, a move so swift and unexpected that it caught even the Vothari's advanced tracking systems off guard. Aboard his flagship, Threxel watched in surprise as the human-controlled vessel executed a maneuver far beyond what Vothari pilots had ever managed with the same ship. Impossible, he muttered. No Vothari pilot could handle that kind of rapid directional shift. Commander, an officer reported urgently. The enemy vessel is targeting our support ships directly. Before Threxel could respond, a concentrated beam of energy struck one of the smaller Vothari support vessels directly, disabling its primary systems instantly. They're using our own tactics against us, Threxel realized grimly, exploiting weaknesses in our formation. The battle raged fiercely above Earth's atmosphere, visible even from the ground as brilliant flashes of light illuminated the sky. Inside the command center, the team watched anxiously as the conflict unfolded. Sarah's holding her own, James said, watching the data streams carefully. But she's taking damage. Shields down to 78%. She needs to disable their coordination completely, Professor Owen said urgently. If she can target their central command ship directly, it might disrupt their entire formation. Elena turned toward Castillo. That's incredibly risky. Their flagship will be the most heavily defended. Castillo's expression remained resolute. Sometimes, risk is the only path to victory. Within the interface chamber, Sarah heard the suggestion relayed through her comm system. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Understood," Unit 7 communicated calmly. "Together we can succeed." Sarah guided the warship directly toward the heart of the Vathari formation, weapons fully charged, defenses stretched to their absolute limit. Aboard the flagship, Threxil watched with growing alarm as the human vessel approached directly, seemingly undeterred by the combined firepower surrounding it. "They're targeting us directly," an officer shouted. "Direct assault on the flagship." Threxil's jaw tightened. "Concentrate all remaining firepower. Do not let them succeed." The remaining Vathari warships turned their full attention toward the approaching human vessel, unleashing everything they had in a desperate attempt to stop it. Sarah felt the intensity of the assault clearly, shields dropping rapidly under the concentrated barrage. "Shields critical!" Michael shouted from the command center. "Sarah, you need to retreat." But Sarah remained calm, focused entirely on Unit 7's guidance. "Almost there," Unit 7 communicated steadily. "Trust the connection." With shields nearly depleted, Sarah made her final move, channeling every remaining ounce of power directly into the ship's primary weapon system, aiming precisely at the flagship's main power core. "Firing," she whispered softly, both aloud and through her connection with the ship. A massive beam of concentrated energy erupted from the warship, cutting directly through the remaining Vathari defenses, striking the flagship's core with devastating precision. The explosion was instant and absolute. Threxil's flagship shattered into countless pieces, the shock wave rippling outward, disrupting the remaining Vathari vessel's coordination entirely. With their command structure shattered and coordination lost, the remaining Vathari warships hesitated, clearly thrown into confusion without their commander's guidance. Sarah, though exhausted and severely weakened from the intense connection, felt a renewed surge of determination. "Now's our chance," she whispered. Guided by Unit 7's calm, steady presence, Sarah directed the warship's remaining systems into a final, decisive assault, targeting the disorganized Vathari fleet directly, one vessel at a time. Within minutes, the remaining ships, faced with overwhelming, precise attacks and lacking clear leadership, began retreating rapidly, abandoning the battle entirely. As the last Vathari vessel disappeared into hyperspace, silence finally settled over the battlefield. Back within the command center, cheers erupted as the final retreat was confirmed. "They're gone," Elena said, relief flooding through her voice. "The fleet has retreated completely." Admiral Castillo allowed himself a rare, genuine smile, though exhaustion clearly weighed heavily on him as well. "We did it." Inside the interface chamber, Sarah slowly disengaged from the connection, her body trembling slightly from exhaustion, but a deep sense of pride and relief clear in her exhausted expression. James rushed to her side immediately, helping her steady herself. "You did it, Sarah. You actually did it." Sarah smiled weakly, though her eyes reflected quiet amazement. "We did it. All of us. Together." Deep within her mind, faintly but clearly, she felt Unit 7's presence resonate once more, calm and content. "Victory," it communicated simply. "Together, stronger than failure ever was." In the days following the battle, news of humanity's incredible victory remained tightly classified, known only to those directly involved. Yet within the small, secretive circles aware of the truth, everything had changed. Humanity was no longer just a primitive species, unaware of the greater galaxy beyond their own world. They had faced an advanced alien empire, defended their home, and emerged victorious. Not through overwhelming strength or superior numbers, but through adaptability, unity, and sheer determination. Admiral Castillo, standing once again before the restored warship, now affectionately nicknamed Guardian by the entire team, addressed his exhausted but proud team one final time. "What the Vathari once called a failure," he said, "we have transformed into humanity's greatest achievement, a symbol of what we can accomplish when faced with impossible odds." Sarah, standing nearby, felt a renewed sense of purpose settle within her, along with a quiet, steady connection to the ship that had become far more than just a weapon. "This isn't the end," she said softly, looking up at the ship towering above them. The Vathari retreated today, but they'll be back, and when they do, we'll be ready. James stepped closer, offering a reassuring smile. We'll be ready together. Sarah nodded, confidence returning fully to her expression. Together. Far beyond Earth's atmosphere, deep within the vast reaches of space, word of the humiliating defeat began spreading quietly among other species and factions, long aware of the Vathari Dominion's power. For the first time in centuries, whispers began circulating across the galaxy. Whispers of a small, previously unknown species called humans, capable of turning even the greatest failures into unstoppable strength. And on Earth, standing proudly beside their newly earned ally, humanity prepared quietly, patiently, for whatever challenges the galaxy would bring next. What one species had labeled a failure, humanity had transformed into a beginning. A beginning of strength, unity, and an unbreakable will to protect the world they called home.